They pulled a Fast X, but it's finally here. It's been 5 years since I've last unleashed my web fluid in response to the cinematic masterpiece that was the first Into the Spider-Verse film. And the wait has had me on the edge of my seat to see what shenanigans the gang gets into next. Did anybody else have a hard time hearing this movie? Especially with Gwen's intro and the drum part, it was like watching Whiplash, but instead of cringing at J. Jonah Jameson screaming at Mr. Fantastic, I just cringed at Gwen appearing angsty but not really hearing why. The audio mixing in my theater had this weird stereo separation and the dialogue was way too quiet. Like, Fast X was too loud, but what's going on here? This movie picks up with what Gwen has been up to, and she really is the other half of this movie. Everything with her secret identity, her father thinking she's a criminal, and her personal identity, they're all a huge theme here. The action is very engaging, and the animation goes way too hard. Like, the precedent set by the first film is met and exceeded in so many scenes. Even in slow scenes, when something emotional is happening, colors and patterns will change in the background to emphasize different emotions. It was beautiful. A lot of setup is done in the movie with the elite Spider-Verse task force led by Oscar Isaac's Spider-Man 2099. He had a great design, and for him to be set up as the antagonist was a nice try, but his setup isn't really done with much justice, and he comes off as just like a grouch in this film. But I felt mostly indifferent towards him. He's objectively a good guy with a troubled past, and he isn't really heard out or understood by Miles for spoiler reasons. Miles, of course, is dealing with normal teenage problems like college and self-acceptance and hiding his identity and the strain that puts on his family. Anytime Miles is on screen, you're going to be entertained, but what's even better is the insecurity that comes from him being in love with an independent Gwen who don't need no man. That was a highlight for me. And speaking of, that brings us to Hobby, my favorite Spider-Man in this film because his political punk rock philosophies are used in just the right doses. The tone and comedy is mostly great in this film, but the emotional beats seemed a little weak. For example, there's this really emotional scene between Gwen and her father. I don't know if it was the dialogue or maybe the audio or the way it was played, but it just didn't have the emotional, like, satisfying, like, fulfilling, like, heart-wrenching moment that it could have had. It just seemed like awkward, emotional truth bomb, and then all of a sudden we're happy, and it's like, okay? The pacing in this movie is just the worst. I mean, this movie clocks in at 2 hours and like 20-something minutes, and without getting into spoilers, this film is more of an episode of sorts. Like, if you've seen Fast 10, you'll know what I mean. And I'm glad the sequel is 1 year away and not 5, because I couldn't help but feel like this was just table setting most of the movie. Like, we have a loose introduction to who the villain's gonna be and some callbacks and some haha, look at these Easter eggs, but that's about it. And on to the point of Easter eggs, there were some fun cameos in here, but nothing that made my theater get up and holler and scream. It just feels like they're saving the best stuff for a future movie. It's almost like, remember this? Remember Spider-Man? Mwah, you like the taste? Here's a little teaser. And then, like, you come back next year, you give us billions. And it just felt like a lot of table setting. Overall, I'd give it a 7.5. Not the greatest Spider-Verse movie ever, but, you know, a lot better than what's been coming out recently from Marvel. So, again, that's not a high bar to push past, but you get my point. Anyway, what did you think of the movie? Are you excited for the next one? I know I am. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and watch more of my videos. Do it. Do it now. Okay, bye.